Hello and welcome to DFS Saturday. Today, your host Matthew is here. I'm also with AJ.
What's up?
So last week, Tony and I think did an okay job. Unfortunately, my quarterback plays of Derek Carr and Roethlisberger lost me every single one of my lineups. So hopefully you listened to all the advice we gave you, besides that, because I think if you did, you probably made some money. Uh, So this week, AJ and I are going to go at it. We're going to do the same thing we did last week. We're going to go through one guy we really like at each position for the price, two low money steals, and then we're going to throw in a free lineup using kind of the guys we mentioned and just put one together and show you its structure. So I'll go first. We're going to start off with quarterbacks, and my play of the week is Josh Allen. Now, Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, I was kind of big on until the weather news came out. I don't think that's going to, mean they're not going to score a ton of points. But at 5,900 and against Cincinnati, I love Josh Allen. I think he could easily rush for 150 plus yards at the same time of, throwing tons of TDs. The 49ers destroyed them.
And that rushing factor is so huge. Josh Allen runs, as far as quarterbacks go, second most in the league. And at that price, that's just like a floor that you really can't pass up against a juicy matchup at home against the Bengals.
Yes, and after what happened to me last week at quarterback, I love solid floors. So AJ, go ahead with yours.
Yeah, sure. So my quarterback went just slightly off the radar, and this is going to taste a little ugly when you hear it, but just hear me out. Jameis Winston is a good play this week. Unfortunately, he is, and it's so hard to take him again after the first 2 weeks that we saw. But kind of like Mitchell Trubisky, Jameis Winston can have those games where he provides you great value, especially at his price on DraftKings. He is priced at $5,400, one of the lowest you can get for a quarterback with as juicy a matchup as he has at home against the New York Football Giants. He has all of his weapons healthy. Mike Evans, who is primed to explode. I'll get into that at the very end. Chris Godwin is performing super well. O.J. Howard hasn't even begun to click yet. I think that the squeaky wheel will get the grease there against the Giants. So for the price, I think that the floor is actually pretty safe, and the ceiling is also super appetizing for that price.
I think it's important to, when we talk about the New York Football Giants, to say they are the Football Giants, because if they're playing the San Francisco Baseball Giants, they might have a better chance at stopping a quarterback right now. So I do love Jameis this week. I do think they're going to run on them quite a bit, but hopefully I can see some big plays. I think this is finally the week. If you're going to buy on Mike Evans, send some offers tonight, because I don't think it'll be nearly as easy to buy him after today. And plus, you'll get to play him, be able to play him against the Giants. So that's a little bit of season-long fantasy advice. So moving on to running back. My running back of choice this week is Chris Carson himself. He has been getting a stupid amount of usage. He got pulled a little bit last game because of his fumbles. Pete Carroll even came out and said the second fumble was not his fault. Last year he only had 3. I'm not worried about it. 3 targets last week. He started with 7 in the game before. He's getting 15 attempts a game. He's just such a good play, and it's the matchup that really has me excited. The Saints, I think going into this year, I said on multiple occasions, I think the Saints defense is the most overrated defense in the NFL. So far, they've proven that to me, in my opinion. I don't think their secondary is really that good. I think their front four gets good pass pressure. I don't think they're great against the run. I think Chris Carson has a really good game, especially as price of 5,900. You're getting a very close to top tier running back for under 6,000. That's what makes him my play of the week.
Yeah, and another reason I really like him that you haven't even mentioned is Rashad Penny hurt his hamstring in a walkthrough.
Oh my god, I totally forgot. I had that written down.
Yeah,
forgot to mention it. That's big.
So, like, if you're gonna get, it's one thing if you get banged up in a game, and if you get banged up in a game and you're questionable, it's like, well, that's normal wear and tear in a game. When you get injured in a walkthrough and you're on the injury report, that's not good. That's like that non-contact stuff. So I think that bodes even better for Chris Carson. And I honestly don't think that he's being considered enough. I really do not think so. And he has a juicy matchup against Teddy Bridgewater, who probably isn't going to be able to match the production that the Seahawks offense can, which means that they'll have clock to kill, which means volume for Chris Carson. I honestly wasn't considering a lot of Chris Carson this week, but I think you've definitely changed my mind the more we got to talking about it.
Yeah, I think for me, all those factors you talk about, if he was what a lot of the other really good running backs are going at, like 6,500, 6,600, it would have just been another, maybe you go with him. He'd probably still be a good play, but 5,900, it just seems really low for a guy with his usage. But go ahead with yours.
Yeah. So my running back play, and I do think that you get value. However, it's one of the most expensive plays of the week, and that's Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke, as we all know, gets the absolute cake matchup of the Miami Dolphins. And because that matchup is so cake, I think a lot of people, and it's quite possible, are worried that Zeke doesn't play the full game. But what I anticipate is Zeke getting enough usage before, if he does get pulled, I could see it happening in the fourth quarter if everything goes to plan, which I don't think there's any reason to suspect that it won't. But I think that even if you get 3/4 of Zeke, he's absolutely going to give you enough to be one of the top plays of the week points-wise, not to mention how unbelievably safe his floor is. And he's absolutely getting unleashed this week. He already had 23 carries last week, had an awesome week against the Redskins, and I think we can absolutely expect that again against the Dolphins. It's probably going to be a slaughter.
The Miami Dolphins are the first time I've ever witnessed just straight up a team that doesn't look NFL caliber. Like the Lions went 0-16. The year the Dolphins, did they go 0-16 or 1-15 before?
1-15, I think.
Both of them, it was weird. It's like they were really bad, and I never expected them to win. But it's like, yeah, that's still an NFL team. They would still kill a college team. This Miami team, obviously, I still think they would beat a college team, but it might be close. Like, the spread might not be nearly as high as you'd expect.
It's just nuts. Especially, I mean, the college matchup, yeah, who knows. However, when they go against NFL teams, it's just like they just seem like demoralized. Like, you hear all this talk about guys wanting to be traded, and it just doesn't seem like anybody really wants to be there or that anybody wants to play the game. They've got Josh Rosen back there now just to, probably save, Fitzpatrick from getting killed. We'll probably see Fitzpatrick there after, week 5 just so they can rotate the damage that these guys take. It's just really bad. It is.
Yeah. Excuse me. Moving on to wide receivers. A guy I don't think is going to be too chalky this week, despite, I think, pretty decent values, Josh Gordon. With Antonio Brown being released, Josh Gordon goes right back to being the main X receiver on the team, the outside option, deep threat. And last week, he only got a few targets, I think 5 total. Yeah, it says right here, 5 total targets, 2 receptions. But they're actually a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. So if we're going to see Josh Gordon being utilized like that and downfield, I'm really excited to see him. And I think against this Jets team, it's a solid floor that you're looking at of 5 receptions, at least 11, 10 points. But there's obviously a chance for a huge play in a TD. I think there's a chance for multiple TDs against this Jets team. The only concern would be, can the Jets keep up enough that they keep passing? And I always say this, and I think we even saw a little bit of it last week against Miami, though Miami's such an extreme case. New England doesn't care. Bill Belichick doesn't care. He'll run up the score as much as he wants, and he does not feel bad about. He'll keep Brady out there. Brady kind of refuses to come out of the game. And Josh Gordon is completely healthy. I think that's something, sometimes when we think about him last year and sometimes him getting limited playing time, a lot of that actually wasn't with the mental issues or the addiction issues. It just happened he had a bad hamstring. And this year he's 100% healthy. He can play all the snaps if he wants. So I feel very good about playing Josh Gordon. And again, his price is at $5,400, so not too expensive for, New England's basically 1A target next to Julian Edelman.
Yeah, at 5,400, he's a very, very nice play here. The Jets' secondary is just not good. It's not. And like you said, Bill Belichick has no problem whatsoever running up the score. So if they're, in a situation to pass, they will absolutely take those shots down the field still. Or, like you said, Josh has been getting some targets around the line of scrimmage. You like to see the mix up of usage, but his bread and butter is those really deep, long deep balls that Brady gets to him. You did mention that he only had five targets last week, but Brady only threw the ball 28 times, and I think that the Jets are going to put up a much better fight than Miami did. The weapons that the Jets have offensively and defensively will make this, not necessarily a close game, but it certainly will not be a 40-point blowout. So I think that also bodes well for the game script for Josh Gordon to have a really nice day.
100%. All right, so your guy, and apparently your new favorite team this year, you went with for your wide receiver.
Yeah, I might. Yeah, I might buy a goddamn jersey at this point, man. I am just all in on these guys. Like I pounded the table for this guy preseason. I own him in almost every single league. I was talking to other people about fantasy preseason, talking about, hey, you need this guy. Make sure you get this guy in your draft, and it's John Brown. John Brown this week at home against a weak Cincinnati defense, and he is priced at 5,500 points, or $500, excuse me. I mean, it's insane that this guy isn't in the 6,000s. He should be every bit of 6,000, maybe even 6,200. His game, like I've been saying all preseason, all season, his game is so perfect for the way Josh Allen plays football. I don't see any reason why they don't connect for a touchdown this week. I'm booking it right now. 70 yards and a touchdown for John Brown at a minimum.
I mean, I think that's a very fair assessment. I wasn't necessarily. I think we had a couple disagreements about John Brown preseason. Obviously, you seem so far more on the right, and my whole problem with that was Josh Allen. And Josh Allen does not look nearly as improved as Lamar Jackson does, but he does look improved, and it looks like he's more able to sustain. I mean, we just argued about this on Hot Take Wednesdays. If you want to go back and listen to that, we won't bore you with it, but I agree with you. John Brown is a good play. I think all of our plays this week, we don't really have any disagreements.
Yeah. I mean, I can go on for days about the guys that you selected. There's this slate, like I told you before we hopped on this recording. This slate is awesome this week. Like there are so many plays where you can look at, and I'm just like in love with the value you can get from these guys and their matchups they're in. I think though, talking about the improvements of Lamar Jackson and to date Josh Allen, they both have had some pretty soft schedules. Josh Allen has played. His first game was against the Jets, and like I said, the Jets secondary is not good. And that comeback started once the Jets lost C.J. Mosley in that game. And he also played the Giants as well. So he has not played a stout defense yet, but their schedule season long is not very difficult. And the only thing that we're talking about this week is this week, and it's another cake matchup at home.
Yeah, so moving on to tight end. My play of the week is Evan Ingram at 5,200. I really, really like him. Obviously, I love the matchup against Tampa Bay. It looked like Tampa Bay's game plan, and I don't know if this was just for Carolina, but was let's just let the tight end run wide open and then try and stop him in the red zone. So if that continues against the New York Giants with Daniel Jones at quarterback, Ingram's having a huge game. He by no means had a bad game last week. It wasn't great. It was basically what his floor is going to be. I think with a new quarterback coming in here, Evan Ingram right now is the best receiving target on the field for the Giants. So I think he's going to get a ton of targets that way. He's going to get a ton of targets because Daniel Jones is going to look to check down a little bit in his first start. And then Tampa Bay just seems to let tight ends get lots of points. They don't guard the tight end very well. Again, I don't know if that's game plan or it's just bad defense, but no way am I not playing Evan Ingram or the guy you're going to bring up. I think I'm playing one of those two in every one of my lineups this week.
Yeah, Evan Ingram, I think, is a really good play. And I got to be honest, just with the rookie quarterbacks, or not the rookie quarterbacks, but the second string quarterbacks who are stepping up this week, I like their spots. And I like the situations that they're taking over. Big Ben didn't really show a whole lot while he was out there. Cam Newton looked like he was injured from the jump. Eli Manning is Eli Manning. These three guys taking over, save for Teddy Bridgewater, I don't like that situation at all. But these three guys that are taking over, the ones that I just mentioned, I like the situations that they have, and I don't think you need to shy away from their weapons at all. And Evan Ingram is just super talented, and like you said, the Buccaneers just seem to be a tight end funnel. It's so weird. So love him this week. Anyways, my pick for this week is Zach Ertz. So the Philadelphia Eagles are out Deshaun Jackson. Alshon Jeffrey's questionable. He is leaning towards playing, but regardless, he's questionable. And they're playing the Detroit Lions, who are not a bad defense. They are not a bad defense by any means. However, just looking at all the factors that I just named, Zach Ertz is in line for double-digit targets, in my opinion. I don't think he's going to get that 16 number that we saw against the Falcons. That was absurd. But I think Zach Ertz can absolutely hit 10 targets and has a lot of touchdown potential this week. And at 5,700 for Zach Ertz, we'll probably never see Zach Ertz below 6,000 for the rest of the season.
No, it's weird that they chose this week to lower him. I know DraftKings, they seem to do their prices a little bit early.
I think it was because he had the Monday night game, right? Was that no? That was a Sunday night game.
Yes.
So that is weird. You're right.
And it's like those guys went out during the game. Anyway, I mean, it doesn't really, in the end, it doesn't really affect DraftKings at what they price at. They just try and make it as even as they can. I love Zach Ertz. I'm with you. He was actually one of my busts this season, and that's based off of the idea that these weapons for Philadelphia stay healthy, and right now they're simply not. Definitely see a touchdown from
and
this.
Goddard as well.
Yeah, Goddard's the biggest one for me, and I was going to say that. I was going to say, if I was ever going to bet on Zach Ertz getting a TD for just 1 week, it would be this week because Goddard is out, which means he's going to be the primary tight end on almost every snap. In the red zone, he's going to be the only tight end, running a route there. That's a huge difference for me, and it makes me feel a lot more confident, especially in DFS. Moving on to DST plays, we both want to mention, obviously, the Cowboys and Patriots have insanely good matchups. The Patriots, have a great defense this year, and they're going up against Luke Falk. I actually don't think Falk's a horrible quarterback. It'll be interesting what Adam Gase does with that game plan, but the Patriots defense is just going to overwhelm them. They're going to score quite a few points, but they are at 3,800. And then the Cowboys are playing the Division II high school team in the Miami Dolphins. You saw what the Patriots did last week. They won a lot of people a lot of money. If you played them, I'm really upset. For some reason, I didn't play any. Patriots defense, and the Cowboys are at 4,300, so it's very expensive for a defense, and I don't think they do the same thing as the Patriots. You can't count on what the Patriots did, which is return 2 touchdowns.
No, so stupid. Absolutely slate breaking, as they say.
Yeah, so the Cowboys are going to get points, and they're a very good base if for some reason you're left with 4,300 for your defense, but I would not count on them they're going to win me the week like the Patriots did. So with that said, my defense of the week is my Minnesota Vikings, and the big reason for that is Josh Jacobs looking hurt, and Derek Carr looks a little rattled out there. I was, Derek Carr fan going into the season, but last week against a not good defense, he looked bad, and the Vikings really, the only slip-up they've had this season was the first quarter of that Packer game where they gave up 21 points, and it really reminded me of the LA game where they just got mismatched. I don't think Oakland has the personnel to even do that. And that defensive line, Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter are tied for first in the league in pressures, coming off the edge. They're going to get a lot of sacks. I see a couple interceptions this game. I'm really liking the Vikings, and they're at 3,300, so it's a little bit more reasonable than the Patriots, Cowboys. You can put some money elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a awesome pick because I think everybody's going to gravitate towards the Patriots and the Cowboys, and by pivoting to a different defense, you save a little bit of money and you differentiate yourself from the field. Where I don't think that, like you said, there's no way that either of those defenses put up 37 fucking points again. That was
No.
just absurd.
I think, maybe you see like the 22 points, which is still an incredible week out of them, but I won't be upset at that when I can, I have confidence that the Vikings, there is a real possibility with what you said with the differentiation, it really helping me a lot this week. So your defense, this may be the one point that I don't completely agree with is your DST pick this week.
Okay, so yeah, this pick a little bit riskier, but I'll go into why I am looking at these guys as a pivot. It's the L.A. Chargers of San Diego. This week, the Chargers are $2,500 on DraftKings, and they do play the Houston Texans, so I can understand why everybody is probably looking away this week and looking at other matchups. But here's the thing. One of the main things you should look at when targeting a defense and daily fantasy is not the points allowed. Okay, what we want are the sacks. The sacks can lead to turnovers. The turnovers can lead to touchdowns. Even for a defense, we want those game-breaking type of plays out of the defense. And that's why I was kind of off the Patriots, because the Patriots are not necessarily the type of team to put a lot of pressure, get a lot of sacks on the defense, but they clearly proved that wrong last week. So I'm looking at the Chargers this week because they have an incredible pass rush with Ingram and Bosa up there, just to name a couple. And the Houston Texans have a notably bad offensive line. Yes, they have Tunsil, but he has not done much to protect Deshaun Watson. I mean, he's not the whole line. The line itself is giving up a lot of pressure this season still. So I like that the mismatch there between the defense and the offensive line there for the Chargers to sneak in, maybe like 5-6 sacks. I mean, I know that that's super high, but I could see them getting a lot of pressure and getting some sacks on Deshaun Watson while also not absolutely screwing themselves by giving up a lot of points at home.
Yeah, and I think at the price of $2,500, if I made a roster and I was just absolutely in love with it, and I needed to cut down at D towards that $2,500 range, there's obviously none of these teams around them, Ravens, Chiefs, Broncos, Panthers are looking below them, I would ever touch. So I don't mind it, and I think your explanation does make sense. I mean, they even got 2 sacks on the Colts offensive line, which is a great O-line.
Right. They
just didn't get the turnovers in that game, and then against Stafford, they got 2 interceptions. So you talked me a little bit more into it.
Yeah, and that was a reason why last week, just to kind of go into my point a little bit more, I didn't have the Chargers at all last week on defense because they were playing the Colts. And like you said, they have an awesome offensive line, and Jacoby Brissett does not take a lot of shots, so there was not a lot of opportunity for picks there. So the opportunities for takeaways just weren't high. And, I mean, you can't just bank on a low-scoring opposing team if you want a high-scoring defense.
Yeah, so moving on to our 2 steals. My first one is the number 1 wide receiver in Denver, Emmanuel Sanders. Now, he was one of my, and this kind of developed a little bit later once it was deemed he was going to be 100% healthy. Kind of my my sleeper pick, because I think he's a wide receiver 1. I really do. Talking about that hot take Wednesday, if we were arguing, I would take the bet of Emmanuel Sanders finishing higher than John Brown. I think they're going to be close, but I would take Sanders over, and I think this is a good matchup for Sanders. It seems like Green Bay's secondary is getting a lot of credit. Kirk Cousins played like ass, and Mitch Trubisky played like ass, and neither one was due to a good secondary play. It wasn't bad secondary play, but Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen got wide open multiple occasions in that game. Watching the all-22 footage made me almost cry as a Vikings fan, and I'm sure people watching the Bears game and really breaking it down saw that the secondary didn't do anything extraordinary. They didn't even really play particularly great. So I think Sanders is going to be open. Not saying Flacco's a great quarterback, but he's really relied on him. 13 targets last week and a touchdown both weeks. I love his floor at 4,800, and I think they're going to get a TD because I think Green Bay is going to go up about 17-3, 20-7, and they're going to let Denver pass the ball, kind of like what happened last week against the Bears. And Emmanuel Sanders is going to be that target, and he's going to get you points.
That's a good point about the Packers secondary. I think a lot of people are a little scared of them right now, and it's mostly because of the fact that they haven't played any great quarterbacks. And I was someone who does think that Kirk Cousins is a little underrated going into the season, but looking at the way he's played thus far, it just seems like it's not in the Vikings' game plan to have him make plays. And he didn't play great against the Packers. You're absolutely right. And it wasn't. And the reason Diggs didn't have a good game is not because of Diggs. It was because of Cousins. I mean, there's film all over Twitter right now of Diggs just breaking ankles in that Packers game. So, I think that's a really, really under the radar pick there. I really like that.
One thing I do want to say is that OPI was bullshit, and we've seen. Already last week there was 3 instances in which something way worse happened, and for some reason it didn't get called back. It was only in the Vikings game. Conspiracy theory is Goodell was at the game honoring Bart Starr, and they wanted to show off the rule and make sure that people stop talking about how it's useless. And the conspiracy. But I was listening to Fantasy Footballers podcast, and they're like, well, I'm starting to worry about Diggs. I'm worried about Diggs. He had a touchdown last week, and he had a touchdown that got called back that was bullshit. And he was wide open the whole game. I think you can't bank on Kirk Cousins playing that bad again. But regardless, like you're saying, this Green Bay secondary is not that great. Mitch and Kirk, I think, they're not even that great of quarterbacks, but they played way worse than they should have. Like, it was on them. There's nothing the secondary did to even confuse them. They just missed throws. It was weird. Yep. It was unfortunate. So that's my first steal. My second steal is actually DK Metcalf, and at 4,700, he's not super cheap. It's not like I'm finding you the bottom of the barrel, but I really like him against the Saints. I don't like the Saints secondary. I already mentioned that earlier. He has been getting consistent targets, 6 and 7. He's been hauling in deep passes, and Russell Wilson. I don't like the guy. I don't like Pete Carroll, but man, Russell Wilson's good at quarterback. He's just so good.
Goddamn.
And they're going to pass the ball against the Saints. He's going to get open. He's going to have a big play or two in this game. 12.9, 15.1. Expect that same thing. And if you're getting that at 4,700, you have the money to spend elsewhere to get you those huge games. I love him in the double up. I think he's not going to be played a lot at all. I don't think he's cheap enough that he's going to be chalked or anything. He's going to be a good play. That's my point. Yeah. I really like him in double ups. That's where I'm playing him in a couple lineups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great play. Those 2 steals you mentioned, obviously Emmanuel and DK Metcalf, I don't think these guys are going to have ownership like above 5%. No. I really don't. I mean, just because there's so many other chalky plays on the slate that people aren't. DK Metcalf, yeah, he's had some big plays. He's had a touchdown, I believe, in each game. Either way, he's had 2 good games. I know he had one against the Steelers for sure. But, he's not necessarily that sexy play, that he's, stepping into a role and underpriced. He's just kind of flying under the radar. And I think that's a really good play for 4,700.
Thank you. I appreciate that, AJ. All right.
I got you, bro.
Go ahead with
yours. You're doing great. I'm gonna turn you into a degenerate by the end of the season, dude. It's gonna be awesome.
I want to halt and say one second. Gambling addiction is a real thing. If you're listening to this, and if you ever find yourself, pawning off anything or selling things or feeling like you have to play fantasy, I'm gonna include a link in the description for a gambling addiction website. Please go get yourself checked out. It's a serious condition. It's a serious thing. The way I'm treating DFS this year, and I know AJ's always talking about turning me into a degenerate, is I started off with the free $20 from DraftKings a long time ago. I've been playing with that same $20 since. If I ever hit 0, I'm not putting in money for this season. Maybe I'll throw in some next season. But personally, that's just how I play. I find DFS something really fun, and I've gotten my money pretty high and then lost it. But at the same time, I've never felt like I really lost money because it's always been that house $20 that I've played with. And of course, if you put a little bit of money into DFS, you're not a gambling addict, but it is a serious thing out there. And I just want people to know. Continue, AJ.
Huh, Matt, looks like he sent me a PM with a link. You'll have to check that out after the podcast. Not sure what that could be. So my two steals, and before I go into my two steals, I want to mention a quote-unquote steal that if you're reading online or you're paying attention to the fact that the Eagles are priced a little odd, Nelson Aguilar is being touted as a steal this week, and he's priced at $3,600. That is incredibly cheap. So I can understand that. But I think he's going to be chalk, and I don't think he's chalk that you want to play into. He's just not somebody that I'm banking on to get you the points that you need. I would much rather have Zach Ertz to get these targets this week. Nelson Aguilar is not included in my steals here, but he is cheap. And my advice: do what you want. My advice is to not play into Nelson Aguilar. You can find your discounts elsewhere. And my first discount, Frank Gore. He's someone who I project to be pretty highly owned. I would say anywhere from 15%, give or take 5%, depending on the slate. He has a very, very favorable matchup at home against the Cincinnati Bengals. Devin Singletary is out, so it leaves Frank Gore and TJ Yeldon. And Frank Gore was the immediate usurper last week whenever Devin Singletary went out. I do think Yeldon will be involved. However, I think the game script very much favors the ageless Frank Gore, and I think a touchdown is absolutely in his future here, along with 20-plus carries if everything goes as we all expect it to go in Buffalo on Sunday. And he's priced at $4,400, so that is an incredible price if you want to try to sneak in another top running back in there, and if you want to flex Frank Gore or put Frank Gore in your running back 2 spot and flex somebody else, do what you wish there.
I can't believe he's still playing. It's just incredible.
Dude, it's insane.
I thought he was going to retire when he was playing with the Colts. I thought he was going to retire when he left the 49ers, to be honest. It's so weird.
Don't forget he was on the Dolphins.
And, I know, exactly. And the weird thing is, I've hated him every step of the way because he's always stopped younger running backs from getting carries, i.e. Kenyon Drake, Devin Singletary, and was it Marlon Mack on the team when he was in Indianapolis, or was there somebody else? Can't quite remember.
I honestly, I can't. I don't think they were very good that whenever he was there. I think that was. I can't quite remember.
But regardless, Frank Gore is infinite. It's insane. On to your next deal.
My next steal, this one I'm pretty excited about, and it's a lot of narrative and a little bit of bias, but it's James Washington, the wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's get into the facts outside of my narratives here. Dante Moncrief. It looks like the Pittsburgh coaching staff opened their eyes and realized Dante Moncrief, God bless him, I am sure he is a upstanding human being. As a football player, he is a absolute garbage can, just not good. I'm just going to leave it at that. He is not good at football. We saw last week one target bounced off his goddamn chest into the opposing team's hand for an interception. And their immediate action was to A, not target him again, and B, announce that the new starting wide receiver on the outside is Deontay Johnson. So that's not James Washington's name. However, James Washington will continue to be the third wideout on 3 wideout sets, and the Steelers run a ton of 3 wideout sets. So we can absolutely expect James Washington to get a healthy snap percentage. Now let's get into the other facts. We've got Mason Rudolph at quarterback, of course. Ben Roethlisberger out for the season. Mason Rudolph and James Washington have a connection dating all the way back to their Oklahoma State days. Let's get into something more recent, though. In the preseason, James Washington and Mason Rudolph have an absolutely electric connection. 3 touchdowns, I believe, in the preseason. Rudolph to Washington. It has been absolutely electric to watch in those exhibition games. Now we get to see them in real time against a San Francisco 49ers defense who really, has been getting quite a bit of buzz lately. They went bananas against the Bengals, just absolutely exploded on them. The game before that, sorry, I just want to see who they played before.
Tampa
before
Bay.
that. I'm not sure if they've necessarily.
They played Tampa Bay, and Jameis Winston threw interceptions that he was not even under pressure.
Yeah. So the thing is they, they look good and people are looking to play the 49ers this week against the Steelers, and I mean you can't blame them for that play. I mean, it's the Steelers with Mason Rudolph at San Francisco. However, as a Steelers fan and looking at the weapons around Rudolph, I do think Rudolph can succeed in this offense, and I'm looking for Washington and Rudolph to establish that connection to pick up right where they left off in the preseason.
I really love this play, and it's partly because I don't think there's a game, a way the game goes that James Washington doesn't end up benefiting. If they stay in the game, I think James, they're going to be passing. If they get behind, they're going to be passing, and James Washington's going to feast. I agree. I actually like the 49ers as a team. I think they're underdogs this year. However, their defense is getting way overrated. They have a good pass rush. That's it. Richard Sherman's doing okay on the outside. Quan Alexander looks like a pretty good running back, but they can't stop the run very well. Cincinnati had the pass because they were down 30 basically the entire game. And against Tampa, they were pretty stout in the red zone. I'll give them that. But it was also Winston just looking like he had no idea where to go with the ball. I mean, for Christ's sakes, Ronald Jones was making... Well, they were making Ronald Jones look like a decent running back. People were thinking, Ronald Jones might play. That's all you need to know. So I like James Conner this week. I don't like him for DFS, but if you have him on your season-long roster, I don't think you sit him this week. Anyway, so that covers all of them. I think AJ and I both made a lineup in the free contest this week for DraftKings. Just go over it really quick. We tried to incorporate a lot of the players we talked about, come out with a final lineup. Mine utilizes quite a bit of both of our players. I went with Jameis Winston, Zeke Elliott, Dalvin Cook, John Brown, Josh Gordon, James Washington, Zach Ertz, Frank Gore, and the Vikings defense. I might change it around a little bit, might move Ertz to Ingram, and then pick somebody else at wide receiver than Josh Gordon, one of those, kind of even more of a solid floor that we didn't talk about. But who knows? AJ, go ahead and list off your team.
Yeah, so since this is a free contest, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, which is no money. But so I'm going to use everybody that I talked about. I'm going to go ahead and put Winston at quarterback. At my running back position, I'm going to have Ezekiel Elliott and Frank Gore. At wide receiver, John Brown, James Washington, and I'm going to get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers stack and throw in Mike Evans against the Giants there. I'm going to put Zach Ertz in at tight end. At my flex position, I'm putting in Austin Eckler. And for defense, I'm using the LA Chargers of San Diego.
I love that. Love that name. All right, so that's going to conclude it for us. Enjoy tomorrow. Hopefully I don't think we did too bad listening to the episode last week, but I think we'll do even better this week. I'm pretty confident in our picks, barring any injuries. I'm telling you right now, I can't predict that Roethlisberger is going to need Tommy John surgery. It's just can't do that. I could have predicted Derek Carr falling apart, though. That is on me. All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. as always for the live stream before the game start. That is Pacific Daylight Savings Time. See you guys then.
Bye.